and welcome to today's episode. We are episode 34, and we're going to be talking to Sanchia Romani in regards to a court case win. And like most of us have been very, very aware about what's been happening in Australia, around the states, we've seen incredible overreach from our government, our police authorities. And like myself, I've always thought that the police, they're supposed to serve the people, serve the public, work with communities. And what we have seen over the last few years is everything but that. I personally have seen the authorities shooting at unarmed civilians, the overreach, unlawful arrests, abuse. The list goes on and on and on. Now it's up to the people as in communities, as individuals, to turn around and say, no, you can't do this. Now, like myself, I know that our court systems are highly corrupt. They're very broken. But we do have to embrace the wins. And this is why I'm really excited to talk to Sanchia, because she is someone that has stood her ground, a brave woman, and she has taken the state of New South Wales to court. So I'd like to introduce her to the show. And how you going? Uh-oh, we've lost... can't hear you.
Was my mic.
Oh, it's your mic.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Julia.
How are you going? Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, so Sanchia, maybe just start by telling the viewers your story and how you ended up in court on, well, I believe it was the 6th and the 7th of December, 2022. That's right? Yeah.
Yes. Sure. So before I start, anything that I share today is my experiences and not legal or lawful advice. So I hope to encourage people by what I've done. And so basically in 2021, I had a flyer that I'd sent to a printer, and somebody had produced a flyer and it had all of their details and contact details on that. And it was sent from my phone and email address to just get a quote, and nothing about COVID or anything like that was on that particular flyer. I was given a quote, and then about on the 5th day, I received a message back to say that that management wouldn't print the flyer. And so I actually sent a message back saying, well, I felt that's discrimination. And the very next morning, 2 armed police officers jumped my rural property padlocked gate with a no trespass sign on it, a no trespass sign inside of the gate, and then my daughter also asking them to leave the property, and they didn't. I did not know why they'd come. It took me a month to find out. And they had been informed by that particular printer of that information. So there was no crime, there was no probable cause, and they had no warrant to come whatsoever. I was quite unhappy about the invasion of my privacy, because I guard that vigilantly, and I like to have a safe place for my family. And so I decided to give the men an opportunity to settle the matter out of court, and that was basically laughed at. And so I decided to file at the Supreme Court.
Wow. So I was looking through the actual documentation of the court case.
Yes.
And it said that they suspected you for actually organising a protest, yet you didn't actually note that on the flyer. Is that right?
It had nothing. There was no evidence of any of that information. There was just, that is an assumption and a presumption. So an investigation was instigated based on an assumption. Now, that material, firstly, they didn't know who had actually asked that. I mean, many people use my phone, and they base that information on presumptions, which is just unacceptable, and that's why they came.
So do you think that you were specifically targeted, or it was just basically, they were just using their powers, asserting their powers because they could? I don't know. What do you think that they...
Well, it certainly, I have my opinions and views around the circumstances as to how that information got to the police and why. But certainly it's pretty clear that the police, New South Wales Police, weren't very clear on what was the correct lawful procedures to follow with regards to anything coming to them like that. So basically an informant had given them that information.
Right. So they jumped the gate with, you had clear signs saying no trespassing. And from what I understand, your daughter was home. And so can you perhaps just talk a little bit about, were there any sort of intimidation tactics that they used in that moment from what your daughter perhaps spoke about?
Yeah, sure. So she met them halfway down our very long driveway, and she saw them from the veranda and went to meet them. And when she asked to leave, they said, "Why is that?" And she expressed to them that she did not feel comfortable with them being on the property. And anybody who comes with guns, and the police, it generally is an association with something unnerving. And she was then asked by one of the officers, "What are you what's that behind your back?" And she said, "Well, it's my mobile phone, and would you mind if I started filming?" But things started to wrap up after that.
Yeah. So what was your motivation, like, I guess, the initial decision to take them to court? Or to take it further, I should say. Yeah.
Well, we had our own previous trauma and experiences with a very violent home invasion. That was a trigger for us, what we experienced, and it was just unacceptable. And also the fact that we have our freedom of speech and our rights to live peacefully. Those are clearly being breached, and so that it needed to be dealt to. And that's why I decided to file at the court, because we clearly can't have armed policemen coming when really it's not in their official capacity. There was no official reason in their line of duty while they were as to why they came. So they were actually acting out of their private capacity. And it's just, not acceptable, and it needed to be dealt to.
100%. So well done for doing that. That takes a lot of courage. I know that, especially with your previous trauma, that could definitely trigger some disturbing feelings. But maybe, do you know if the police, did they actually apologize or receive any training around actually that they cannot do that?
As far as I am aware, we had no apology. That's one thing. And as far as their training, I don't have any clue as to how that's been followed up, which is something I did raise at the court. As a matter of public interest, many people feel intimidated, and we need to know that people, police officers that are doing these things, need to be held accountable, and the public needs to know what consequences there are to these officers, but that has not been forthcoming.
Okay. So most people, when they're faced with going to court, they hire a lawyer, but you chose to represent yourself. What was the decision? But why did you decide to do it that way?
Oh, a few reasons. I've experienced lawyers before, and I felt that I could possibly do a better job myself. I'm certainly not trained in legal or lawful, but I'm a strong believer in myself and my rights, and I like to protect that, and I have that right. So I chose to put my best foot forward.
Amazing. That's really brave. I know that if I put myself in that headspace straight away, I'd be like, firstly, where do you even start? So you went under the common law jurisdiction, is that right?
Correct.
And so why did you do that?
Well, I'm in common law. And for me, I wanted to also keep it simple. Once you start to enter into that world, there seems to be so much paperwork, there seems to be forms. And for me, that was a little bit challenging initially. I actually didn't even fill out the correct form initially when I filed my claim, but all the information was on that summons. And I just kept being persistent. You know, we are allowed to make mistakes, and we have the right to uphold justice for ourselves and one another. So I just kept going the best way that I could. And I did put some hard work into, you know, just reading how to go about things, and mostly my lawful rights. I generally don't get too involved in legislation. It can be used, but I just stuck to basic rights in this matter to keep it simple and to speak commonly.
Did you get any sort of assistance from anyone, or was it just basically you sort of did some reading and made the mistakes along the way, learnt from them, and then carried on forward? Or
pretty much. And you just, you know, I always am a firm believer is when you step your foot into the right direction, the right information or the right people.
Lost your sound. Uh-oh. Seems like you have been frozen. All right, guys, just bear with us. We've got a few technical issues. I'm just going to pop you out and put you back into the room. Hopefully that fixes the issue.
Now?
There you are.
Yeah, come back.
So, yeah, keep going. You were talking about your experience on how you, I guess, carried yourself with learning.
Yeah, just so when we step out, then, and you know, we've got our intent happening, the right information comes, you know, I come across different people. I actually use the Free Courts Act. When I first filed at the court, I was sent an invoice to file for over $1,000, and they gave me 2 days to pay that, which wasn't achievable for me at that time. And I also felt that that was an injustice in itself. If the wrong thing's being done, nobody should have any justice sold to them. So I decided to write a letter back declining that invoice to contract with them and reserved my rights, and used the Free Courts Act of 1400, and my documents were filed the very next day, which is important because a lot of people are paying a lot of money to get justice. And really, that to me is unacceptable.
100%. Well, we're supposed to be living in we're free human beings. And if we want to exercise our right, like you just said, of being safe or having, you know, being safe on our property, we shouldn't have to really pay for that. That's it's great to know that exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you do that because I actually attended my first court hearing a few weeks ago just as an observer, and the courtrooms are really intimidating. Did you have to go in person, or did you do that online?
So lucky for me, I actually was able to do it via Zoom, but that had its challenges as well because of the distance and because at the time there were all the restrictions. So from the beginning right through to the end, it was all conducted via, you know, a Zoom link. So, but, you know, then there was often distractions, you know, on the screen. I'd been cut off many times. You know, I was inhibited to speak. It was just, yeah, it was actually quite grueling, but persistence is the key. And I wasn't going to accept not being heard.
Beautiful. That's incredible. Now let's talk about the outcome, because it's a successful outcome. What are your thoughts about that? Because you were awarded damages as well. What were your thoughts around that?
I was satisfied in that the judgment, that the trespass was, it was made very clear. For me, I would have liked to see a little bit more, what's the word, a comprehensive, over, other areas could have been a little bit, what's the right word? Yeah, there were some areas of lack there in my view. And yeah, I'm still sort of processing some things about the judgment, but overall it is a win for everybody, because it's sent a very clear message that police do not have the freedom to come onto people's properties when asked to leave, and also especially when you have no trespass signs, and if they have no, warrant or probable cause or any crime has been committed. So for me, that's a very clear message that has been sent by the judgment. And I'd have to say that the justice in the matter who facilitated the final trial did a good job, and he was quite fair.
Good. That's great to hear. It's
was.
actually really nice to hear.
It is nice to hear.
So, you strike me as a person that, you've got a lot of courage, bravery, and you're standing up for your rights, and you're doing it in a really fair way. You're doing all the right things, right? So I feel, by listening to you and hearing your story, that I think a lot of people can learn from this and basically take a little bit out of your book. If anyone wants to perhaps contact you or maybe get in touch, ask questions, do you have any sort of platform or email address or something that you might be able? Would you be willing to answer any questions? Or
sure, I can share that with you, and then you can put that out, because the main thing for me is we don't need to be experts. We're just everyday men and women, but we need to feel empowered to be able to stand in our lawful rights and do that peacefully, do that lawfully, and have some basic tools in our toolkit to know that we've been educated for so long in a certain way, and we need to really start to assert our rights, because he who doesn't assert his rights has none. So I'm more than happy to and there's lots of people all across this country that are doing amazing work with taking a stand. So networking and encouraging one another is more than happy to facilitate that in any way I can help.
Great. So I'll add your detail, whichever one you choose to share, to the page. And I guess the final question, are you doing any other work around the community that you perhaps, any alarm bells that you have sort of seen coming up in your local area? Is there any other things that you've been sort of active in? Or
yeah, sure. So we have a lovely little community here, and but it is certainly concerning. We've quite a few people in our area have suffered intimidation and bullying by the authorities. We're not satisfied that is, we want that in our community. So we're doing what we can to raise awareness amongst people and to obviously educate people. Surveillance cameras are going up everywhere. I mean, we live in the closest town is one street, and they're just popping up. Now, where have we been consulted about that process? There are certain processes that need to be adhered by. So that's where I'm encouraging people, just write, put it forward. You need to ask the questions. If you don't ask the questions, you won't get the answer. So, we're doing things like that in the community on various levels, and because we're all men and women, and no one is above the law, and no man or woman has authority over another. So we need to make sure that we do our bit to keep our community safe. And unfortunately, it seems like we're mostly keeping them safe from the powers that be. So, yeah. So my community in support of me have actually, we've got probably like a flyer that they've put out regarding the trespass, the police being convicted of trespass, to get that message out to everybody. Yeah, so lots of good things.
And obviously we're not, you know, saying that all police are bad, all are corrupt. We're just saying that there's a select handful, there's a few or a large number that unfortunately they take orders, and we're questioning the morality of these orders, right? And how far these people are willing to go before they start morally being in the wrong. And there's been a lot of that going on. So good on you for standing up, and good on you for doing something about it. It's amazing. So yeah, anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up? Or
no, we just need to make a stand. We need to get up off our couches, stop watching TV, and start writing, and feel good about it, and feel that liberty and that power that comes with doing that. We have a road ahead of us, and we're not going to accept thuggery. We're not going to accept bullying, and there are ways for us to get remedy, but we must be persistent.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been really nice to meet you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Julia.
Online. All right, cool. Thanks, Sanchia. Bye. All right, guys. So thanks for joining me today. We're going to pop this up on BitChute and Rumble. Join our mailing list if you haven't already. And I will also add Sanchia's contact information shortly as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.